Afternoon, Tim. How you
Hello,
doing?
Shabba. Yeah, I'm all right. How are you?
Welcome back to part two of listeners' questions.
I'm looking forward to it. We could dive in. Maybe do you want to just say something briefly for people who perhaps didn't hear the previous episode?
Yeah, last week we had our first listeners' questions episode where we had about a month ago through our various channels sent out an invitation for the dear listeners of this show to post in their money and life questions. They could have been related to episodes, things that have been mentioned, or any sort of money query, life query that's cropped up in their life and wanted to share.
Very cool. All right.
So yeah, the invitation went out and we've had quite a few questions. We started going through them in last week's episode, which was really fun. And we're going to continue with
Great.
some more this week.
Last week ended up, it wasn't deliberate. We were just literally reading questions, but we ended up talking a lot about fear and anxiety and death and the need to just sort of have those experiences and realize they're not about money. So I'm interested what will come up this week and whether it will be a different thing.
I'll get us underway. So
Great.
Rachel has a question. Why do I keep giving my money away? How do I consistently save and accumulate? And why does it seem that once I have it, I should circulate it? How do I attract fee-paying clients without it feeling like work? It's about 3 questions, I think, in there.
So why do I give it away? How do I save and accumulate? Why do I feel when I have it, I need to circulate it? And
yeah,
how do I attract fee-paying clients?
without it feeling like hard work.
Well, let's do something kind of relatively simple. And then again, Rachel, you can be back in touch and we might dive in more and see where it takes us. All right. I'll say something here. I'm thinking immediately, Shabba, of the first 2 or 3 episodes we did of the podcast where we talked about the primary, or I sometimes call them the archetypal money movements. Because when I listen to Rachel's questions, on the one hand, and if you're watching on video, I'm going to do some hand movements. One is I'm giving my money away. So I'm doing a sort of moving or pushing away gesture. Why do I keep giving money away? That's not someone who says, I give money away and that's great and it feels good and I'm happy to give it away. It's why do I keep doing it? Almost as if I'm doing it and I don't want to, or I don't know why I'm doing it, or it's a problem. So that's one thing. Well, then I have another question. How could I save and accumulate? Now, save and accumulate is a different movement. I'm bringing my hands towards me. I'm bringing the money I have and I'm holding on to it. So one is a giving away movement and one is a holding on, saving, accumulating movement. And it sounds, Rachel, from your description, that for whatever reason, it's more familiar or known or habitual for you to give money away than it is to hold on to it and save it. And then actually the other 2 questions are kind of a variation of those first 2 points. Why, when I have money, do I feel I need to circulate it? Well, we can talk about circulating, but in a way, it's the same sort of movement as giving away. So I've got it. And instead of saving or accumulating, not that that's better, but I feel what did you say? A compulsion? Or what did you say? I feel
No, what? Why does it seem that once I have it, I should circulate it?
I should circulate it. So again, Rachel, there's in you somewhere a kind of a push, and it probably not fully conscious, that when I've got it, it sounds like it's hard for you just to hold it, save it, accumulate it, hold it. It's hard just to keep your money with you, and you feel like you give it away or it needs to circulate or go out there. So we'll get into that. And then the next question is, how do I attract fee-paying clients? Well, that's about money coming in. So in 4 questions, I hear an inner and an outer movement. And like many of us, we've talked about this on the podcast, it's good when you're getting interested in this stuff to notice what movements are you more comfortable with and familiar and which are harder. And some people are very good at holding on to their money. So it comes in, they hold on to it. Maybe they save it, maybe they don't, maybe it's in a bank account. And what's hard for them is it's hard for the money to circulate or flow or move out. And others, when it comes in, it quickly disappears. They find it hard to hold on to it. So I can say a little bit about that. Again, we don't know Rachel, we don't know her details, but we can talk in general about that. But let me pause again, thinking of those archetypal money movements and the conversations we've had, and maybe thinking about your clients. Maybe some of them find it harder to accumulate or feel that it needs to flow out. What sorts of things might be going on there generally for someone like that?
Well, I see a whole host of different clients, but generally when they come to see me, they're in the kind of
Mm,
trying to attract. We even call it the accumulation phase
right.
of, yeah, you're in the accumulation phase of life, which, could also be reframed as you're in the grabbing phase of life, right? And it's funny how these things play out, and that once they're in their accumulation phase, and now we're working towards retirement, and then when it gets to the time to finally start spending and
Mm,
using it, giving it away, spending, etc., then they find it really difficult to,
right.
so
Because they've
it's
been training themselves just to accumulate and
to
hold for 10,
right.
20, 30 years.
But I really like Rachel's word circulate,
Mm,
because circulating feels like quite a nice thing, like a nourishing thing for, to circulate your money, because it feels like it goes out and it comes back in and it's being productive and useful. So I'm interested in that word circulate, because
mhm.
I think that has quite positive connotations
Yeah.
for me.
Mm. No,
But I think
I agree.
maybe in her question, we don't know because we can't sort of follow up. But the word should obviously
Yes.
has a bit of a loaded judgment
Yes.
attached to it.
Should is a clue that
Yeah.
I'm not doing it freely and consciously, that there's a pressure
Yeah. I,
pushing me to give or circulate. So, well, let's dive in. Okay. What we know in general, again, going back to the first few episodes, if I am unconsciously entangling experiences, emotions, and feelings as a human being, which I take to be pleasant and positive, and I tie them up with money, I'm likely to want to grab, chase, and hold on to my money. If for me, I believe with money comes fun, power, status, freedom, joy, sexiness, success, things generally I think to be positive and pleasant, the mistake I'm making is thinking money has anything to do with those things. They're part of me. I'm either sexy and powerful or I'm not. It's nothing to do with a zero in my bank statement. But if I make that mistake, I will tend to be a grabber and a holder onto. I will want that to come to me. As I said, we've gone into more detail previously. Now, what it sounds like is Rachel has the opposite. It sounds like, in general, if someone says, when I have it, it's like I get rid of it. I give it away. I don't hold on to it. I feel a compulsion that needs to circulate. And we'll come on to that word. Then very often, Rachel, consider there's some judgment you have around money or some aspect that you are tying up with money that's negative. So examples might be money is not spiritual, it's the cause of problems, it's unfair, it's dirty, it's the source of all the problems in the world, etc., right? Evil. If I have a very strong or largely negative set of feelings, experiences, and emotions tied up with money, and I haven't investigated them, that's when I will tend to find myself getting rid of it, even when that might not be useful. So, Rachel, my short answer is there is something negative, or there's something you've taken to be negative. You're tying up with money, and that's why you're doing it. Because if I'm unconsciously thinking money is evil, dirty, and the source of all the problems in the world, then when it comes to me, why would I want to be in contact with that? Better to get rid of it so it's away from me, right? I'll take another step and then we'll have a discussion. Now, here's the interesting thing. Giving away money sounds like a very nice thing to do. If I have money, like you're talking about people retiring, if I give it away, there's certainly people with less money. It's great to give away money. But the key in this work is not whether I give money away or whether I hold on to it, but do I do what I do freely and consciously and with awareness? So if I give, there's a world of difference between I give my money away because I could hold on to it, or I could give it and I'm free and conscious about that. And I absolutely choose from my heart in this moment to give it away to this person or this charity or whatever. That's free giving. That's real generosity. On the other hand, if my entanglements with money make me think unconsciously it's dirty and nasty and the source of all problems in the world, and I give it away, that's not generous. That's just me pushing stuff away that I don't want to deal with. And actually, if deep down I think it's dirty and unfair and I'm giving it away, that's not very nice of me because I'm giving someone else this dirty, nasty, problematic stuff. So, in general, for people listening, because some of them might be holders and some of them might be pushers, the key is this. What am I unconsciously tying up with money? Is it largely stuff I've decided is positive, pleasant, or negative, unpleasant? And how do I become free to hold or give or circulate or accumulate, but I'm not compelled or pushed or should or reacting to do it? Let me stop there. How does that sound to you, Sheba?
Yeah, I feel a bit nostalgic because this goes
Mm,
back to the beginnings of our discussion when we launched the podcast. The first 4 episodes were literally on the introduction to this work and the bedrock, which are these money patterns that, you know, people play out. And I think it'd be good just to mention and honor the third pattern, which is the
mm,
one where you find that you do both. So you're sort of
yeah,
pushing away and pulling, which leaves you sort of stuck in a sort of in a position where you've got a floor in a ceiling.
yeah,
So, you know, you don't quite break free to accumulate the money that you want, but you also don't kind of give it away or reject it to the extent where it takes you below a certain line. And that's a common place that I found myself in. So
yeah.
I can really relate to that. But that third position is also available for,
Well, and
for
the key with the third, because it can sound sensible and very common, the key is it's often very dull and lifeless and lacking vitality. And we can't use money or even take risks with money or ask for money that would sort of create more life and flow and creativity. We're a bit, as you say, stuck. So yeah, that's good. So Rachel is stuck in giving it away. So yeah, anything to say on that or typical patterns you've seen around that or we've discussed? I've mentioned a few like it's evil, dirty, etc.
Yeah, I think the morally righteous religious sort of card
Yeah.
comes out for me and a lot of people I've spoken to, especially within the mosque and
Mm,
community. You know, that money is the root of all evil kind of thing that gets brandished around, very misunderstood, and that causes people a lot of problems, and then not being able to hold it, you know, eventually leads to just that repelling, right? That uncomfortable feeling of unable to reconcile
mm,
those feelings and teachings and beliefs and things that have been passed down, especially from parents. I think we've talked before about how money stories or money actions from parents and how things have played out
mm,
can often lead to the
mm,
patterns. So yeah, it's a fascinating piece of work to do around this, and
mm.
it will bring, I think, a lot of consciousness and freedom to live when you can identify, which Rachel has, right? So I mean, that's the first thing that she's sort of identified, that
She's noticing the pattern.
she's noticing the patterns. So, and then the fee paying clients, you know, I mean, I can sort of, that speaks to my whole marketing conundrum that I face on a daily basis,
Mm, mm,
attracting clients without feeling like hard work.
mm.
There's obviously something going on around that bit.
Well, let me say something on both of those points. I think you're really helpful when you mentioned the kind of religious framing. The two obvious sources of why might I be unconsciously against money, and Rachel, I would encourage you to check this out and anyone else listening, is family upbringing. So sometimes there's class stuff, sometimes people who were brought up poor or brought up kind of very proudly working class are against money or against having too much money. I've worked with a lot of people who actually had a very good life and lots of the benefits of being a close-knit community working class environment, but they can be sort of subtly against having too much money because in their mind it means they're turning their back on their history, betraying their roots, no longer belonging. So always look at a family of origin. They can also just be mum and dad had different stories about money, or there might have been chat around the kitchen table about people who had too much money or were nouveau riche, or notice things in your family of upbringing that might be against money or have judgments about people with money. And the other is more in the present is subcultures. So a lot of people now who identify maybe they're new age or spiritual or green or environmental or anti-capitalist, all of which have very good things to say about the world and how it could be different. But it's very common in those subcultures that people are against kind of capitalism, money, etc. That's fine if it's conscious, but if it's unconscious, you're consistently pushing money away and under resourcing, and you don't like that either. So something about finding out one's relationship to that and seeing that even if you're against it, it's also part of you, and that's okay. And then here's the thing, Rachel's fourth question: how do I attract fee paying clients without hard work? If I'm loyal to a subculture, let's say I'm part of a new age or spiritual view and I kind of think money, materialism's a bit bad, then the point is, even though I think I want more clients, when I get more clients, I might think I'm less spiritual. I lose my righteousness. So I kind of say I want them, but deep down, a bit of me doesn't, or I think I lose some of my integrity or my spirituality. So I can get in a right old tangle. So Rachel, yeah, check out what is it in you? What are your kind of negative judgments around money or people who have it or get it? And it may help you to look into what were the stories about that in your family or any subcultures you identify with, and see where you go, and email us and let us know, and we can maybe help you with the next step.
Perfect. Right. Moving on.
Thank you for your question, Rachel.
Thank you. Um, so Felicitas has
Mm,
asked, now this is quite a deep question in terms of the topic that it's opening up, and not something that we've really spoken about on the podcast. So I'm
right.
thinking that we just acknowledge this,
Hmm.
address it, and then this will make a great episode because we did want to
Okay.
talk about this. But how do we live ethically in this topsy-turvy world? Which bank do we choose? Where do we invest savings ethically, if that exists at all? UBS, BlackRock, Barclays, Deutsche Bank. And that is before we even think of what to invest in. Green funds, Mark.
Gosh.
There's a lot there, and it opens
Mm,
up a whole new topic area
mm,
around sort of ethical investing, sustainability, the
mm,
current banking system, all of that, which might be a bit too much to answer
mm.
in any sort of great detail. Do you want to just say a few things about that, and then maybe we
Yeah.
definitely pencil that for
Yeah.
a
Great.
special episode, because we do want to jump onto that.
Great. All right. Yeah. And it links very nicely to Rachel's question, because typically the people who are very worried about how do I invest ethically, they may end up being a bit stuck or paralyzed, or their money doesn't work for them. So uh, I'm not saying ethically investing is a problem, because that's what I do. I'm saying if I'm worried about it, and if I look at the world and go, it's all so topsy-turvy and problematic, and I only want to do ethical things, people like that can end up not investing in anything at all. And that doesn't work, right? And it's a little bit like what Rachel was saying. If I'm a little bit against it, it's almost like I look out at the world and it's so grubby and capitalist and full of all of this problems. I don't want my money to be associated with that. So if I'm not careful, I don't know what I do. I put it in a pillow under the bed, and there's something very noble and good about that, but there's also something problematic about it. So let's dive in a little bit. Two thoughts for today. I think you're right. We should do an episode, and I know it's also in your ballpark as well. Two thoughts. The first one, in line of all the work we've done, is if I want to invest ethically, which is good and great, sounds like I'm identified with being ethical. I'm ethical. I'm sustainable. I'm environmental. And I want my money to be like that. I don't want my money to go any other places, which might be unethical or corrupt. Or I need to see that I, as a human, am already all of those things. Whatever I do with my money, even if I burn my money or give it all to the dog's home, I am still involved in this unsustainable, harmful, unethical system. just because I am, just because I live here and I buy
Mm.
stuff and I use buses or whatever. So the first step is we call it reclaiming. Yeah, I am ethical and I am sensitive or I am caring or whatever the stuff I want to be with my money. I need to say, well, I am that regardless of my money. So felicitas, whatever the words are for you, know that you are already sensitive, tuned in, conscious, ethical, regardless of what you do. Know also, and this is harder for people in some subcultures, that however much you try not to be, and however much you try for your money not to be part of it and your lifestyle, you are absolutely part of a privileged, unfair,
Great.
corrupt, greedy, and dangerous culture because that's part of you too, right? That's quite a big thing to say. Once I see that, sometimes it helps me be more free to put my money as best I can in somewhere that as best it can aligns with what I think, but not worry about it too much. Because there's something in Felicitas's question that's almost like, oh, if I made the right decision, I somehow insulate myself or protect myself from this system. Well, you
Mm.
can't because you are the system and it's part of you. But you can still do your best with your consciousness and sensitivity. So let me pause there, Shab. I've got one more slightly left field thing to say, but where does that take you? And I know you're advising people all the time on investing.
Yeah, it's a really tricky one to try and balance
Mm,
because there's no perfect solution. There's no
mm,
greener than green or ethical. That there's sort of a debate that even with there's a lot of greenwashing that takes place as well. With
mm.
it's almost like in fashion to offer an ethical, an ethical fund or an ethical solution. Are they really? You know,
Well, I'm going to push back without going to great deal. I get the argument. I know there is one, but I could at least decide I'm not going to invest in bond making companies
yeah,
and oil companies. That might be a step. So
yeah,
I think it's not nothing.
and that's the point I was sort of coming back to was you can get very
Yeah.
hooked into like looking for the solution and getting into a bit of a frenzy over it. And I think it's a best endeavor,
Yeah.
as you were
Yeah.
saying, because there is a lot of marketing and hoodwinking in this area. I've come to see from having advised in and around it. Although I'm not an expert in green investing, and there are advisors that are. So you can always seek one of those. But that's all I had to add on that particular
Okay.
front.
No, I think that's true. And this frenzy, I like the word. It can be a frenzy if you all the small print, da 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 da. All of that, I would say on the one hand, if it's conscious, it's really great. People should be more conscious with their money. We should be more aware that our money has impacts and where we spend and where we save. I want everyone to do it. If it gets to the point where it's so much that I'm driving myself mad or not doing anything, that might be the bit where I think, what's really going on here? There's something about my discomfort about being part of the system. I'm going to say one other left field thing. I did a presentation on this work once at actually a leading London ethical investment company, which was really interesting. And I really thought about it, and I wanted to get them to think more deeply about money. And I looked into the origins of the word invest. And the origins of the word invest, do you know? I don't want to
No.
put you on the spot. Okay. Well, when you had an investiture, it was an official conferring of authority. You invest someone, I think, at universities with robes, or you say
Okay.
you're now in this role. So investing was like a conferring on authority actually onto a person, often with clothes and some sort of ceremony, that they had an authority to do or be or act in a certain way. And you'd often have I think they're called investiture robes or stuff like this. So knowing as I do, and people will hear me on the podcast say often, whatever we think's tied up with money is not just about money. I thought, well, what is investment not to do with money? Because we think investment has to do with money. I'm like, well, what happens if I invest or if I think about investing in my life with money, but also not with money? And I suddenly thought, well, my money is one source of energy I have in my life, and there are others. And if I care about the world or ethics or whatever I care about, how do I confer authority on myself in my life to go and act in service of the stuff that I care about, right? So if I think the world is a mess,
Mm.
or if I think certain causes are really important, or if I'm troubled by the capitalist system, one way I think about how I engage with that is with my ethical investment. And yeah, that's good. But I think the question it would raise for me, and it's a bit left field, Felicitas, yes, confer authority with your money and put it in the places you want to support, and consider how do you step up, or what investment or authority or position might you step into? I don't mean a job. I mean, I am here to speak out for nature, or I am here to do what I can for this cause or concern. And what would it be like to kind of feel the weight and the gravitas and the authority of that, and to claim it, nothing to do with money? More to say about that, but maybe it offers a thought. What do you think? Am I just crazy, or is there something there?
No, never crazy, Tim. Never.
Oh, that's good. I need to invest the authority of myself to say strange things, and
That's what you're here for, to
yeah,
challenge the narrative.
I think there's a stepping up and realizing we can move forward the things we really care about in our lives with money and without money. And similarly, even if we were talking about investment in general, forget about ethical, often we invest, again, it's a worry or it's something we want in the future. What would it be like to really invest right now in your potential and legitimacy and validity to stand for and express whatever it is you think you would do if you had more money? It's worth thinking about.
All right, let's move on swiftly. Okay, so next question is from Natalie, who writes in with, after being forced to leave my job of 20 plus years because of burnout breakdown, my lifelong anxiety about money skyrocketed. I
Mm,
ended up in a psych facility as it
mm,
reached a point that I wasn't safe. I've recovered and now have a whole new work life, which I love and feel reasonably financially stable. But, and it's a big but, if anything happens to threaten that stability, I can
mm,
incredibly quickly catapult into extreme and debilitating anxiety slash panic. So my
mm,
question is how to deal with my financial Achilles heel.
mm,
Okay. That's
mm. Yeah, well, thank you, Natalie. I'm kind of touched by the question.
mm,
Um, Sounds like it's been a hell of a journey, and thank you for sharing it. Two thoughts. I'll say them briefly, and then we see where we go. The first thought connects very strongly to what we talked about on the previous podcast. So Natalie's talking about really experiencing a very profound, strong anxiety that sounds like it's been really distressing for her. So the first thing is to honor that, to refer you back to the roots of that we talked about in the previous podcast with some questions, which is humans do have, whether we're aware of it or not, a very deep, deep level anxiety about our existence, our vulnerability, our fragility, and most of life is a distraction from that. So it sounds like for you, Natalie, for whatever reason, it's less easy for you to not see. And you might think that's a downside. It may be a blessing as much as a curse. It's not for me to say where these deep experiences lead us. But we do know on this podcast, money does tie up with some of our deepest core emotions, feelings, energy. So I can't say why it is on Natalie's path she gets through money to have to really face into some profound anxiety. All I can say is from the previous podcast, all humans have that on some level. Not everyone has to kind of face into it in their lifetime, or maybe it's only at the moment of death. And Natalie's having to find her way to relate to that. And although that might feel very painful and difficult, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a bad thing. The other impression I get, again, without knowing lots of detail, is it feels like there's a journey of healing happening here. It feels like something, Natalie said she lost her job. That spun her into a very profound experience, maybe with some anxiety. And remember, the anxiety is never ultimately about money, but money might be the trigger. So again, Natalie, I'm sure she looks into her past, maybe her ancestry, maybe experiences she's had, maybe family stuff. I don't know. Or maybe just being a human. There's anxiety there. The money never causes the anxiety. but it surfaces it. But it sounds like actually there's been an amazing journey of healing and trying to understand this. And actually, you've recreated work and flow. And what there is still this fear, right? So I'm doing much better, but there's still a vulnerability. It kind of reminds me, it's like if you have a physical injury and then it can be recovered and you can do all the physio and you can be stronger and you can have all the scans. You can actually be better than you were. But I'm not a sports physiologist, but I think there really is this thing. It's like your body has some memory of what it was like when things weren't okay and you're always a little bit braced. Yeah. So on the one hand, in Natalie's story, I hear a connection and maybe a life learning that's necessary to face into this anxiety around money. And the other, I hear there's some healing going on, but this kind of almost like looking over my shoulder because I'm still a bit haunted by that trauma. So I don't think I can say much because this is very sensitive stuff. I don't want to speak too much in general. I would offer one possibility from the work we do, which is on the work we do, we always want to include both sides, right? We said if I associate being powerful with money, I want to see I'm powerful whether I have money or not. And I also want to be in touch with my vulnerability and know it's good. Or if I think I'm successful with money, I want to see I'm successful, nothing to do with money. And also I'm a failure. And that's okay. We're really trying to see both sides. What I wonder, Natalie, is as well as you bringing into consciousness your anxiety and fear, and that's great to work with that. I wonder what happens if you spend really good time and give space to the healing that you're doing. So if you said, I am healed, I am healing, I am healthy with and without my feel, with and without, what did she call it? My Achilles heel, right? An Achilles heel, remember Achilles in the Greek story did have an Achilles heel, but was also a magnificent, strong, impressive warrior. So yes, we should acknowledge our heel, but no, we shouldn't identify with the heel and forget the fact that the whole rest of Achilles was this extraordinary being. So Natalie, I think there may be something about honoring both sides. And if you've done a lot of work around the anxiety and the trauma and the difficulty, please don't lose sight of the fact that you're whole and healed and healthy with and without your Achilles heel, or with and without some residual anxiety, and just see if that happens. Again, people who don't know this work well, we're not trying to give Natalie a pep talk. We're not to say, "Oh, you're all right, love, no problem." But we always, humans, get one-sided and it gets tied up with money. So Natalie might be thinking something like, "Well, I'm doing much better and I've really sorted out money and I've done a lot of my inner work and my work's going well, but I'm still afraid of this stuff." And then she maybe would make too much of that and think, well, that means the healing isn't real, or there's much more healing to do. And we've all got to heal in our lives, but let's honor where we have got to. And so maybe we could say I'm healthy and healed with and without my fears, or with and without my little chink or Achilles heel, and see if that helps, Natalie. And again, let us know, email us in, and more than happy to carry on this conversation if we can be helpful. What do you think, Shaba?
I mean, first of all, just the question is so amazing in terms of the vulnerability to write in with such a question. And it just goes to almost like the reason we do the podcasts. I mean, it's like this stuff, when money gets involved, it's like jokingly, like we say life and death, right? Not not being able to unpack this work is, can have such dire consequences on someone's
Yeah.
life, and it seeps in. And so it just sort of reconfirms for me, why putting out these conversations is so valuable. I wanted to touch on something, and obviously I'm no expert in this area, and I lean on you, Tim, a lot of the time to bring the true work to life. But you've always mentioned something around the investigative work that we need
Mm,
to do. And I'm just wondering, with like what Natalie was saying, I was just picking up
mm,
that she was saying, if anything happens to threaten that stability, I
mm.
can incredibly quickly catapult into extreme and debilitating anxiety and panic. And I'm thinking whether
Um,
there's something to offer around that. Okay, when you say, like, let's just question the reality of what's being presented to us, or where our thinking is taking us. And it feels like that might be a step that Natalie's aware of or not aware of, but
Right.
it could be that actually that first little bit of like reality check can sometimes stop you spiraling into that panic, anxiety, whatever it is that you're going to.
So by reality check, what would you imagine? What would someone
Well,
do at that point?
you know how when we've talked on the podcast before, how quickly we can get to the place which we call I'm under the bridge without anything. So something might happen to threaten my current situation, and it could be the prospect of a, you know, lower salary, or
I
an
lose a
unexpected,
contract or
yeah,
something.
an unexpected bill, or the stock market falls, or there are
Mm.
numerous different things. But suddenly, I'm believing in a story which actually isn't true.
No, it's a great spot. Couple of quick things to say. I think it's a great spot. The problem is once we're grabbed by something, that's the precise moment where we need to do what you say, but we're often incapable. So it's like if I can catch it while it's happening, I think Natalie can, from what she's saying. You're right. It's something happens to quote threaten, and I see myself spinning off. At that moment, I might absolutely say, is it definitely true? Is this just a story? What am I imagining that would terrify me? Is there any evidence to think that's what's really going to happen? All of that, as you say, can create a space between this very extreme experience I'm having and the reality. And if that can even partly help me breathe, slow down, not freak out, that's great. So, yeah, noticing how quickly stories and scenarios are whipped up in our mind and just say, okay, it's a story. Is there any evidence? Not really, etc., etc. That's great. The other thing Natalie could work with here is there is story there about stability and extremes, or stability and a kind of chaotic panic. So if anything threatens my stability, it's like right now I'm stable, and that's because I think I'm stable because my money's stable, my income's stable, everything's okay. But if anything threatened that, I'd go into, I think she said it, panic or extremes or something like that. Now, again, the story could be with money, I get to be stable. Without money, I flip out into panic. And Natalie could also consider that she is stable. Stability is in her. And even if she lost a contract or had a big expenditure or her money went down, it's not inevitable that she then needs to be in panic. She could say, yeah, there's a bit of me that's chaotic and panicky and extreme, and that's okay. That's okay. That's just part of me, whether I have money or not. Even if I was a billionaire, that might be part of my nature. And there's a bit of me that knows stability and whatever the other words around that would be. Because the mistake would be, Natalie, especially with your story, is to think, I get to be stable when I have money. That would be the mistake. You get to be stable because you're stable, because you have stability. So, yeah, that was a great spot,
Beautifully done.
Shepard. Thank you.
Okay, Tim. Feels like that's the end of the questions for today.
Nice.
And a nice way to end. Do you want to add anything before we wrap up for today?
Not really, just how lovely it is again to hear from people. I think we said that last time. I love the fact people are engaging with the work, and that for me it's always very creative just to respond to real situations. So thank you to, it was Rachel, Felicitas and Natalie. Be in touch if anything's helpful or not helpful. And anyone else listening, don't be shy. Let us know your questions and we will do our best to respond. And don't forget to like and subscribe as well. We appreciate it.
And recommend to a friend.
And recommend to a friend or two. Yeah.
I'll see you next time, Tim.
Cheers. Thanks, Shaba. Bye-bye.